Welcome to this edition of Getting to Know You, a series of interviews with ringers across Essex, where we get to know a little bit more about them, their ringing career, and their life outside of ringing. Today, I've got a really good special one for you. It's a 2-for-1 offer. We're getting to know Jim and Yvonne Towler. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi there, Vicky.
Hello, thank you for joining me. Jim and Yvonne, you're known across Essex as being prolific peal ringers. Explain to us, what is a peal and why do people strive to ring them?
I've never chased totals. I've never bothered about totals. But recently I thought it would be nice to get to 2,500, a quarter of the 10,000, and I've got 2,502 to my name.
Can you explain to us, what is a peal?
A peal consists of 5,040 or more changes that you have to ring consecutively without stopping. I think it's got to be of a reasonable standard. You can't just go there and jangle bells around for 3 hours, but it's got to be of a reasonable standard, and the band want to be there and are pleased to be ringing in it. Otherwise, there's not much point. I've been arranging peals at Tarling. We call it the Sunday band, once a month for, I'm not sure now, probably 30 years or something like that. But the aim was to get 8 ringers, probably fairly consistently, so that some of them were from other districts, and they were saying, well, we don't have a chance to ring surprise major or quite reasonably. So in order to keep yourself, you do need to practice, and so learners practice at practice night. And what we're doing for peals is actually practicing to ring for a good standard and keep that standard up. Otherwise, you can't if you know, or it's very difficult to. So I did it, and we had a band with variations, and I used to ask a lot of the young people who perhaps were at the time, you know, keen and ready to ring. I think Andrew Beach was probably one of our youngsters, but I don't think peal ringing is elitist. I just think it's ringers. Like if you go and ring bob doubles and ring a quarter peal of bob doubles and ring it well, you have a great sense of achievement. Well, that's actually the same for peal ringing.
Jim knows how many peals he's rung. Do you know how many peals you've rung?
No. I think I think I've rung. Haven't I rung 1,500 now?
I don't know.
Was it 50? I can't remember.
Obviously, you've rung a lot of those together as well, haven't you?
Yes. I probably rung only one or two.
Yvonne Towler, 1,625th peal, so you've rung over 1,625.
Oh, there you go. Fancy that. Yes. Didn't even know when I rung my 1,000th peal, did I? At the time. I think we
having rung so many, can you remember what it was like to ring your first peal?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd had 5 attempts at my first peal before we got it, and one of the attempts was at Sandon, and Pat Saltmarsh arranged it, and we were in the last 720. I think just halfway through, or nearly just halfway through that 720, and he set it up because he thought two bells had swapped over or whatever. And Simo, I remember Dennis Simon saying, what do you do that for, in a sort of quiet voice? And Pat said, well, it was wrong, wasn't it, and whatever. And Dennis Simon said, no, we were right. Why, even if we were wrong, why didn't you let it roll round to the end to find out if it was definitely wrong? So I lost it after about 2 hours, 45 minutes. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember my first peal. I had no aspirations at all to ring a peal. But the chap who taught me to ring Arthur Hubble from Malvern, he'd rung 27 peals. And I always used to drum the tenor because that's what I used to enjoy doing. And he got me on treble bob. I used to plain hunt on the treble to plain bob minor, of course. He got me on the treble, and I was sort of dodging with one, past another one, dodging with the next one. And I was doing like that. I hadn't really got a clue what I was doing, but I did it all right. And he said, right. He said, I'll get hold of Howard Eggleston. And he said, we'll go for a peal. And a week or two later, we went for a peal at Purley, and we got it. And yeah, it seemed a long time. I remember my first as conductor a couple of years later, and that was my sister's first peal, and she was wilting about halfway, and Howard Eggleston said to her, he said, "Don't worry, dear, we're nearly halfway," and she thought we were near the end, and that didn't do much for her. So,
are you both originally Essex? Where do you hail from, and where is your home tower?
My home town was Danbury, and I was taught to ring by Peter Kame, and Dick Roast was tower captain at the time.
There were 6 bells.
Oh yes, we were 6 bells then.
Yeah.
And then after a few years while I was there, we got the 8 bells.
Well, I started at Malden. I was in the church choir at All Saints Malden in 1951, and I used to watch the ringing because I had a curtain across in those days, a dark red curtain. And I used to watch people like Horry Mansfield, who was the tower captain at the time, or it might have been Arthur Hubble, but I used to watch them. And one day, that was probably in 1956, Arthur Hubble said, "Why don't you learn to ring?" And so I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll try." Well, it was early January 1957, and I learned to ring with Arthur Hubble teaching me.
Do you remember much about your experiences while you were learning to ring in those early years?
I was only 11 and a half, and I think I had the choice. I'd got to go up to guides, and that she was the same person as my brown owl, and I think I was a bit too feisty for her, really, and a bit of a naughty brownie. So my mum said, well, I could, and bell ringing was the same night as guides, so I decided I'd start bell ringing like my sister. But so I was 11 and a half, so I don't think I was a lot shorter than I am now, but at any rate, I had to stand on a box, and in those days, the boxes were very, very small. Not like today, when you get sort of quite big ones to put your feet in different places. It was small, but yeah. And then when Peter came, if he couldn't do it, Pat Saltmarsh used to come, because he used to come to Danbury practice, obviously, although his tower was Sandon. And Pat Saltmarsh would teach me, but he wasn't as patient as Peter. That I do remember.
What I used to do before I could ring any methods at all, I used to have about an hour at a time, non-stop, on my own, with the bell tied up, just controlling the bell, hand stroke, backstroke, and making the bell do what I wanted it to do at whatever time, and with the littlest amount of effort. And that sticks in my memory a lot.
You've both been ringing for quite a while now, quite a number of years. What do you enjoy most about ringing?
Probably still helping people, really. You know, if you've got anyone in the tower that you're teaching or anything like that, or I enjoy going to young ringers with Christina, and just watching the young ringers progress, and going out with them and things like that, really. Yeah.
And I used to enjoy ringing heavy bells, and it was round about this time, beginning of 1986, I had the offer to ring the tenor at York Minster to a peal, and I didn't know what to do. I said to Yvonne, I'm not going to say no, I'm going to go for it. Rod Pipe was calling it, and the border was on the 11th, and I had to stop about half a dozen times going up the belfry to try and stop myself passing out. And after 2 hours 55 minutes, we were going 2 hours 33 speed. Sorry, 3 hours 33 speed, which on 3 tons, it's exhausting. It's like pulling a heavy bell up as hard as you can all the time. Ringing up to the balance, and it's easy. So Rod Pipe could see I was in a bit of distress, and he said, what do you want to do? I said, for Christ's sake, slow down. And the band was good enough to slow down in about a few changes. And whereas I wouldn't have lasted until 3 hours, I lasted another another 50 minutes, which shows you, you know, on big bells, you don't have to work your guts out. I've always said I would get more tired ringing Downham tenor and 224 than I would get ringing chomps of tenor to a peal of Maximus and 328. It's that sort of comparison.
What are your greatest ringing memories or achievements?
Well, I don't think I've really achieved a lot. One of my good memories is being invited to ring 50 in the 50th anniversary peal of VE Day at St Paul's Cathedral. And I was in that band. There wasn't a mistake in the peal. And it was excellent ringing. Martin Falk rung the tenor, and that was a superb peal. Yeah, very proud of that one. Yeah, Eggleston arranged a peal of Stebbins Sinks because he wanted to ring the tenor, and I was on the 11th, and he got a real top band, and there wasn't a mistake in the whole peal, hardly a clip, and that was the only time I had the experience in the middle hour of the hair on the back of my neck standing on end.
We're quite proud of, you know, what we've done in Essex. We rang over 100 methods with Ali Barber, but I suppose overall one of my best ringing memories is a few years ago we rang a ladies' peal of Cambridge Maximus, and all the ladies were Cumberlands who had rung over 1,000 peals, and it was for Muriel Rie to celebrate, because she was the first lady who had rung 1,000 peals. So it was a celebration of that for her. And that was an absolutely amazing peal. That was probably one of the best Maximus peals that I've ever rung. You got these women round the back end. It was at Worcester on the 2100 weight, 12. And these women on the back end absolutely knew what they were doing, and it was a really good peal. One of the other ones actually happens to be ladies as well. Again, in the 60s, I'd been going with my friends, and we'd ring quarter peals over at Rain because the vicar liked us to come and ring for weddings, and so I used to get ladies, and then he'd present us with white carnation each. So we were sort of trying to ring quarters with the view of perhaps we'd get a peal one day. And I think it was in the end, Joe wrote more or less, said, look, for heaven's sakes, you've got 6 ladies in the district. You're quite capable of ringing one in the southeast. So I got Toles Hunt Darcy, and Rosemary Smith Frith called it. That was her first peal as conductor. And I think our average age band, we were about 18 or something like that, because Rosie and I were only about 16. And yeah, the average age of the band was about 18 or 19.
I forgot about another one of my achievements when I rang my ladies' peal.
Oh, yes.
Jemima, yes, I remember.
And one of the girls got caught up in traffic up in the city. And before the days of mobile phones, mind you, there's no signal in Tarling anyway. But somebody came down the pub, and I'd had 4 pints, and I rang the treble. I remember after 53 minutes, how am I going to last another minute on this bell? And the peal was actually 2 hours, 53 minutes. And I waddled out of that tower like a pregnant duck.
Certainly did.
Lots of peal ringing. I know you've also travelled to other parts of the world to ring as well. Are there any bell ringing goals or ambitions left for either of you?
Not for me, no. I can't do them. I mean, my one ambition was to ring Exeter on its own with only my name on there, because I rang Exeter on my own in 1972. Rang it twice with Phil Rother, and in those days, people were not allowed, if they didn't look big enough, to ring bells of that size. So I said to Phil, would you mind strapping, when you strap, would you mind not pulling all the way through unless I ask you to? And he said, yeah, that's fine. But Phil, being Phil, every now and again, he'd stop the bell going up at backstroke and look up me with a big grin, because that meant I had to pull harder and harder. But, we got over that one, and we got the peal. in 3 hours 46. And I was absolutely stuffed at the end of that. But yeah, I did it on my own. And it was worse than ringing it on your own, because you've got the extra strap rope being hauled up all the time, and some idiot on the other end of it trying to mess things up. But I mean, two names were attributed to the tenor, so I can't count that as ringing it on my own.
I would like to now that there's this 41 minor for all the work, this Alexander Holroyd one, we were very, very close in our last attempt to getting that, and that would be just nice to show that we could still do it, because most of the band is over, or 4 of us, I think, is sort of over 70. So that becomes quite a different thing when you're older, for learning methods, keeping them in the brain and whatever. So that would be I think that would be a really good achievement, yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What would you say to other ringers out there to kind of enthuse them and encourage them?
Oh, well, I think ringing's an absolutely great hobby. It doesn't matter what your, shall I say, profession in life is, or whatever you do. Ringing is a great leveller. Just because you've got an excellent brain doesn't mean to say that your handling or anything like that will be as good. You might find it actually quite hard to learn to ring, and other people can just sort of get on the end of a rope and it's as natural as if they've been doing it forever. So yeah, it's a great fun hobby. It's really good socially, and I think it's good. We do it for the church. You know, we are ringing for Sundays, and hopefully making people aware that the church is still alive by ringing these bells on a Sunday morning, even if nobody goes to church. I've been very, very fortunate to be able to go across to America, Australia, and things to ring, and that again is a totally different sort of, you know, adventure and thing, and that's been wonderful.
What ringing is all about is control, listening to your bell, and listening to it amongst others.
On the flip side then, what would you say to people who might be interested to learn to ring? How would you encourage them to come and have a go?
Definitely, a bit like a lot of things really, definitely come and have a go, even if you are a bit worried or concerned, you know, a bit anxious. Definitely come and have a go and try it, and give it a few, you know, quite a few weeks or whatever, to really see how, you know, to learn. You can't learn just to handle normally. Most people can't in a short time. It does take quite a while, but they often find that that the social side is, as I said, is so good. You make new friends, and it's worth sticking with it, certainly.
But the problem I see today is, certainly with the youngsters, you're getting such a big age gap between the good ringers and the people coming along, and unless you live in big cities or something, you know, when everything's on your doorstep, they're all young. I think the biggest problem is that if youngsters think they've got to go to church, with most of them are over 80, then they don't want to know, and that's the biggest put-off in bell ringing. If you could introduce a lot of youngsters into the system as a group, that would be probably the best way to go. I mean, we've tried that with brownies and cubs and things like that. Some of them have stuck to it, some haven't. But you've got to get the interest there, and I don't know how to do that.
What unexpected things do you think ringing has taught you across the years?
It's taught us within the ringing fraternity, if you like. It's not the sort of thing where you make many close friends. You see each other in the pub, you hardly speak. You see each other in the belfry, you hardly speak. But you always say, "Oh yeah, of course I know him, yeah." And you suddenly think, "Well, what have I said to them?" You know. and it's taught me that you don't always gain such a close contact with somebody as you might think you do.
For those people watching this, the next few questions I have already discussed with Jim and Yvonne, and they've both indicated that they're happy to share their stories. So both of you have had quite severe illnesses to contend with. Jim, as you've already alluded to, you were diagnosed with a heart condition a number of years ago, and Yvonne has been going through cancer treatment recently. Jim, if we start with you, what effect has having had that diagnosis had on you, and what modifications have you had to make within your life, and particularly about bell ringing?
Basically, not ring heavy bells. I mean, it was after, I think the last time I rang a heavy bell was 2002, on the day after my dad died, and I rang the jumps attendant of Belfast Surprise Maximus. But that was pushing it, and after that, I learned that I couldn't do it anymore, and because I couldn't do it anymore, I didn't enjoy it. I don't enjoy ringing. I've got nothing to look forward to at all, personally, and I'm quite happy with what I've done. I don't want to do any more. But the heart problem, I mean, one year I was carted off 15 times in the ambulance because the heart just went absolutely, it was like a sledgehammer beating, like you could actually see the whole chest moving like that. I remember the first time, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden, just bang, 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 bang. I'm like, God, I just reached for the phone and dialed 999. And I was out ready for the bloke when the ambulance came. And he said, who's it for, mate? And I said, it's for me. He went, oh, for Christ's sake. And he went up to me and he put his hand there and he said, for Christ's sake, get in that ambulance quick. And by the time I got to Colchester, I was nearly out. But then, of course, I went for this pioneering operation in 2007. There was 10 of us, never been done before. I'm the only one who survived. And I died on the operation table. I remember that because I was actually awake when I was watching it on the screens when they had all these wires going up through my groin, both sides, and with a burner inside the heart at 50 degrees centigrade, which was quite painful. But I had to be alive, and then suddenly this burner went the wrong way in the heart, and it pierced straight through into the pericardial space, and it filled with blood pretty quickly and hydraulic the heart to a standstill. And to get rid of that, they had to put a 13-inch needle through from my stomach right up into the bottom part of the heart space and suck all the blood up before they could restart the heart. And that took a hell of a lot out of me. But looking back, I mean, the pain was you can't remember pain. I always say you can't remember pain because if you could, there would only be one birth in every family. But I always said, no, I would never have anything done like that again. But you do. But yeah, it's affected my ringing in that I can't do what I want to do.
And then I get diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, totally out of the blue. Didn't think there was anything wrong with me at all. In fact, I wouldn't have gone to the doctors. That was pure chance. And so that changes life again, and you have to adapt.
And it's still terminal.
Yes, it is terminal. It was stage 4. And I have, I take a chemotherapy pill every single day. So I am stable, and I'm still within the parameters of being stable, just over 2 years, which we didn't expect at all. So that's an absolute bonus. So to me, every day is a bonus. I enjoy life, as you say. As obviously, and family is very, very important, so that really family comes first. My ringing does come second and whatever, but I managed to fit in peel ringing with adjustments. Can't do quite what I wanted to do, but I'll do a certain amount of peel ringing, because I do find that I get very tired. Probably
the
doing
skin's
everything
a big
else.
problem as well.
Yeah, and my skin is definitely a big problem nowadays. But then my daughter turns around and says to me, "Well, Mother, you're doing far more than most people aged nearly 70 anyway." So I look at it that way and think, well, yeah, that's fine, as long as I am. That's great.
Thank you for sharing that and being honest and open with that. And obviously I speak on behalf of probably everyone, that it's good that you're both still with us, and still very much active and involved in ringing in Essex. So thank you for that. Let's move on then to life outside of ringing. What happens in Jim and Yvonne's world that's not ringing related?
Well, the biggest thing is probably skiing.
Skiing for hobbies, yes. But
because the whole family do it.
Yes.
And Nick's son, Nick, has got a place out in Switzerland at the moment where he's going to today.
Just for a holiday.
But we've skied with the grandchildren and our children every year since they started in about 1985. And that's held the family together. And the other thing that's held the family together is the thing that Dad can do all sorts of things in their house. I had a special present from the grandson saying, there's a mug, and on the mug it said, "If Pop can't fix it, nobody can."
I've got yoga. I do badminton.
Still play badminton.
Still play it. And obviously family. I've looked after my granddaughter for the last 10 years for sort of 2.5 days a week. And obviously just after school, in school terms now, etc. I looked after the boys as well. So I gave up the library to actually to look after Neve when she was my daughter had got to go back to work after a year. So, but I've always still kept up with the library and still worked for the library on a part-time basis as and when all these libraries need me, which could be worse than full-time if I let them.
How do you juggle ringing activities in with everything else that's going on your lives?
Well, I suppose peel ringing has always been
right.
It's been top priority. I always quote at our 50th golden wedding anniversary last year. Somebody said, because there was a whole group of us ringers who got married in 1969, and we were the last one of the group. I said, well, we could easily have been the first one in the group in the year to get married, but November the 15th was the first free weekend we had without a peel.
I've always managed to juggle, as you say, peel ringing with everything that I'm doing.
So just to finish off then, is there anything else that you'd like to share with everybody, or any sort of departing words of wisdom?
The one thing we didn't mention, which of course you can go on forever and then the subject's gone, but one of our achievements, I do think, is which we haven't mentioned, is getting the 6th bell at Inworth. Inworth was the most grottiest little 5 that when you rang them, it sounded like that they were going to fall in on your head at any rate. So I'd always sort of been in charge of the tower, but only so that when visiting ringers and people like that wanted to come, there was somebody who knew what they were doing. And because the church, obviously wardens and everybody didn't really understand. So it was nice when a lady contacted us and said, I would like to learn, and that was through the Millennium campaign. So that was brilliant. It does show that, you know, these things do work. Mm-hmm. And she came and learned on our grotty little 5 bells and everything. And we were a very small church with about 12 or so of us regular ringers. But I said to the church wardens, if there was ever a chance of me getting another bell, you know, could would you think about it? And they said, oh yes, do. Because I talked about the Celtic Bell Trust. I said to our church wardens, it'll probably, might take about 10 years before they can find the bell. And with about a year later, they said, we've got a match for you. Jim and my son collected it from Derbyshire on the back of the trailer. And I think that was a great achievement.
And we were cutting these holes in the brick to put the girders in. And there was so much red brick dust. We had to open the tower at the top and open the door of the belfry. And we were doing that for 2 days. And the first day, if you were standing outside, all this red dust, it looked as if the tower was on fire. But we did the same thing next day. And we opened the top. And of course, the bottom tower door was open. But everything had reversed, and all the dust went down into the church. And that was the day before Good Friday. All the flowers, all the seats, everything you could think of was just covered in a layer of red dust. So we weren't the most popular people at Easter. Thank you
both very much for joining me today on this Getting to Know You session. It's been really interesting to explore your ringing history and a little bit more about you. So thank you, Jim and Yvonne Towler.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shame we didn't have time to go through even half of it.